Hello, folks. Welcome to the Manly Pinterest Tip Show. I'm Jeff C., and you're not. And I am so excited to announce our special guest for today's show, Mr. Shannon Hernandez. Now, I met Shannon on Google Plus on various Hangouts, and most importantly, I subscribed to his email list after one of his shows, and we'll talk about that more later. And I was so impressed with his style and the way he wrote those emails, and it really drew the reader in. And so I was lucky enough to spend some time with Shannon a couple weeks ago at the first ever podcast movement conference, in which really kind of further cemented how smart this guy really is. So, and Shannon is a digital marketing specialist for the Hernandez Family Law, a Google Plus coach, and a 98 KUPD on-air radio personality. He assists small business owners by helping them optimize their marketing efforts through cloud productivity suites and increasing their visibility on social media. He's also an authority on podcast generation and audio imaging production. Shannon, welcome to the show, my friend.
Mr. Jeff, thank you so much for having me on the Manly Pinterest Tip Show. I am excited. When we met we've already known each other. You were on the list, but when we met each other at the podcast movement, I told my sister when we were there, I go, "Psst, that's Jeff C."
Yeah, and you're not. And you're not.
And
So
you're not.
that's right.
So we
Well,
were excited to like meet up. Actually, it was really exciting just to meet up with another pluser.
yeah,
Because that's how we met. I would have not known of you unless I had not been on Google Plus.
yeah. We were about the only three Google Plusers there, but it was a good conference. So.
Yeah.
For you guys watching and listening to the show, I'd love it for you to head over to manlypinteresttips.com, subscribe to the email community, which we are talking about today, and that way you'll never miss a great expert like Shannon when these live shows start happening. So if any of you guys, as I'm talking with Shannon, have any questions in our live audience, make sure that you ask them in the comment stream, and we'll try to get to those later on during the show. So let's get cracking, and I'm going to start, Shannon, right with the questions. Now, you have a master's degree in secondary education. How in the world did you get started in social media?
Well, man, my story goes way, way, way back with many, many different professions. So, you know, just to kind of give you the cliff notes, I started. I was a DJ. Way, way back in the day. I started back in 2000, and I was just a promotions assistant. And as I went through, and I was becoming a radio guy, I went back to school. I had already gotten my bachelor's degree in interdisciplinary studies and media communications. So I had gotten that, and then I went back to school to get my secondary education degree and became a high school English teacher. And oddly enough, I was thrown kind of into the role of teaching rhetoric and the art of persuasion. So rhetoric is such an amazing tool, especially in this field when it comes down to persuading people to believe in your product, to trust you. And I learned pretty much at that point in time every word that you say, from the articles like a, the, and or to the adjectives, the verbs, the modifiers, everything means something because it connotes, or it means something different as you say it. So I taught that for a couple of years, and then I jumped out and I got back into the radio business full time. And so then I had been doing that, and that's up to this point about 7 years, 6, 7 years full time. But I've been there total for about 15 years.
Wow.
And around the same time, well, maybe about 3 years ago, I was on the phone with a friend of mine. His name is Mark Spomer. He's a photographer here in Phoenix, Arizona, and we were talking about building businesses. We had these mutual friends, party friends, but we also had business friends. And we were learning a lot about each other. Learned, wow, we had all these great friends. And so he says, "Hey man, why don't you come on and check out this Creative Live webinar that they have going on right now on how to build your online business?" And I said, "Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I'll check it out." And at the time, creativelive.com, for me, they had just started out with only just a couple of programs. And the program that I was on and I was watching was How to Build Your Online Business with Lewis Howes. And Lewis Howes, of course, was friends with James Wedmore, and James Wedmore was friends with Derek Halpern, and Derek Halpern was friends with Amy Porterfield. And they all were on this webinar, a 3-day webinar, 8 hours each day.
Wow.
Amazing content, blew my mind. Watched a woman make 17 grand in like less than a day, and I was like, I want to do that. I want to do that. That is awesome. And so I bought the program. It was only $99. I think that program is up to like $300 now.
Right.
Brought the program, and that's where I kind of got started with all this social media stuff. That's when I decided I need to learn about, marketing. I needed to learn about email marketing. I need to learn about building lists. I need to learn about whatever, and I needed to find a niche where I was confident in teaching. So that's when I kind of really dove in and started learning Google Plus, and that's when I started coming across people like Martin Shervington, Ronnie Binzer, Mark Trapping, and of course that led to the connection with you.
Right. Right. Well, we've talked a lot about this stuff offline together,
Sure.
but we kind of share the same philosophy on social media. So, can you tell our listeners and viewers, okay, I'm online, I'm doing Pinterest, I've got a following, or you can even apply this to another social media platform, but why in the world do I need to start thinking about creating an email list?
Right. It's the same thing that you're going to hear from a lot of other authorities. They're saying build an email list because, Pinterest could disappear tomorrow. Facebook could disappear tomorrow. And those people who follow you, who've circled you, who, are, getting subscribed to your tweets or whatever, that platform could go away. Great example of that is MySpace. I mean, remember the days of MySpace, I never understood how people made money on MySpace until I jumped into this platform or jumped into this type of marketing. And MySpace now is like a music platform. It's something way different. And so when we look at that and we think, okay, if we're starting our business from the very ground up, just like I've been doing and everyone else is trying to do, an email list can be transferred. It can be used for a particular niche. It's yours to keep. It doesn't matter if you're on MailChimp, Aweber, Infusionsoft, Vertical Response, Constant Contact. You own those names. You own the list for that particular niche. And so you could take that niche anywhere or that list anywhere you want and still send emails out to them because emails get opened all the time. And I don't care who you are. If you only check your email once a week, you're still checking your email. Even if you're deleting the certain emails, there's a reason why you might be subscribed to some person's email list. Maybe it's inspirational, something that's inspirational. You
Right.
still want to open those up. I subscribe to a ton of lists, and not all the time do I get to open them. But what is fascinating about the idea of owning a list and building an email list is that you can create different styles of emails that catch or grab someone's attention, and they're more likely to go, oh, hey, what's inside that email? I want to know what's inside that email. And you're always trying to work towards getting someone to open that email up to see what you have to offer. Maybe you're offering something that is a class, or maybe you're offering something that's maybe just a weekly email, an update, or maybe it's some type of inspiration. It doesn't matter. That email will get open at some point in time if you're trying to get people to stay subscribed and interested in what you're trying to teach them.
Right. Real quick, Alyssa says, you take that back about Pinterest, which,
I'm sorry, I take all of
yeah,
it back.
yeah. But, it's true, and that's kind of my philosophy as well, is to, you can have great followers and engagement on, especially Pinterest, which you want, which is very valuable. But, yes, it always needs to be pushed back to your spot where you can grab their email, and so that is yours. And, if Pinterest ever charges for stuff, or if, Facebook totally gets no reach anymore at all, then you have those people already, and you're able to do stuff with them. So I think that's a
Sure.
great point. Another question, I know a lot of bloggers, and I know a lot of bloggers in our audience, they use Pinterest, and they use it to great success to share their blog content on and get some great traffic from Pinterest. In fact, that's why I started with Pinterest, is because I was getting so much traffic from the platform.
Sure.
So what's the best way for a blogger, after a person comes to their site, they've clicked on the link in Pinterest and they've come to their site, what's the best way to get them to sign up to be a part of that email list?
There's a couple of ways we can do that, and most recently, I think there was a kind of a come to God moment for me whenever I was in a session. I think it was with you,
Hmm.
and I believe you were in that session with Tim Page from
Right.
Link Pages, and talking about the different types of opportunities to get someone on your list, and you could do it a number of different ways. So someone comes to your Pinterest board, they see something that's like maybe a blog that's the top 10 top 10 ways to get traffic to your website using Pinterest, and they say they click on that, and of course they go to your page, and of course your blog is listed out to whatever it is that you have there, and you have some great content. it might be of benefit to you to create some type of offer, or maybe like a checklist. And this is not my these aren't my words. These are Tim Page's words. To create some type of checklist.
Right.
The top 10 tools to to up your game in social media or on Pinterest, and utilize that as an opt-in. Maybe it's something that has to deal with a sidebar, your own sidebar graphic where they have to click on that, and then of course that takes them to a page or a lead page or some type of opt-in page where they can enter a name and an email address, and then you send them the actual checklist that you use in your everyday personal life. I think something. I think people say, "Well, what if I'm giving away too much?" And I used to think the same exact thing, and I'd heard people like Amy Porterfield and Lewis Howes all say, you use a ton of tools every day, and they change constantly. There's no harm in giving out some of the best content, because that is what builds trust, and that's what builds people to go, oh, he just built this one thing out. I'm going to go ahead and I want to go ahead and grab that. So, you can build a tool list. If you have blog posts, maybe you can repurpose those into some type of audio piece of content, audio content. I had written about this in one of my blogs a few months back, and it was by this voiceover artist. His name is Bill DeWeese. I always mention Bill DeWeese. Bill DeWeese has no idea that I follow him.
Right.
But when I went to Bill DeWeese's blog, he says, hey, why don't you download this MP3 download, and I'll tell you exactly what you need to do to build a six-figure income with voiceovers. And so I was like, okay, what did I do? I went ahead and I clicked it, and then his email campaign started on me, and he sent me an audio file, and it was something that I could listen. I remember sitting on my couch and listening to it and being like, wow, this is really great information. So it could be a number of things. It could be a checklist. It could be an audio file. It could be a video file, or maybe a video a video tutorial of some sort. So whatever your business may be, and maybe it's personal life coaching, you got to find and figure out your niche and what it is that you want to give them. You could do PDFs for, small ebooks, repurpose the blogs into PDFs and give it to them. Those are just a couple of ways that you can get them on your list.
Those are good. Yeah, let's talk about that a little more. I know a lot of people offer, guides or ebooks. I see that, quite a bit, even as pins on Pinterest, and to get them to sign up for their email list. Now, okay, here, I'm a small business owner. I barely have time to post on social media the way it is, So what can I do, and you kind of touched on this, that doesn't take a ton of time for me to create? And I can answer this for myself real quick. Is one of the things that I think you told me or somebody else did is to take the most common questions you get from your clients or potential customers and create a piece of content out of that.
Sure. Yeah. I'll give you a great example of that. And this was just recently happened within the family law firm over here in Phoenix. And someone had asked a question, like, well, I don't know what to write about. I don't know what I should be writing about. Well, typically what happens when we get into a consultation, I don't get into the consultation, the attorneys do, but when the attorneys get in the consultations, they get asked a number of questions. It could be like, well, what does child support cover? Well, that question has probably been asked a million different times by different people. What does child support cover? So you could typically write that down in your notes and then go to that question in a blog. And right. It becomes a piece of utility. Jay Baer talks about this quite a bit. Jay Baer, New York Times bestselling author, get his book Utility. That is a great way to get a handle on what your content should start looking like and how you can build promotional pieces with the content that you do create. As long as it has some form of utility that someone can go in and say, this is great content, then that lead can go from a cold lead to a warm lead to a hot lead, and could be sitting right in front of you and say, I'm sold, man. Sign me up. I know how to do this. So, a great example of this was, and I think I told you this, Jeff, at Podcast Movement, was that there was a guy who came into the office and he had a consultation with my sister. And he sat there and he pretty much recited every little thing on every blog that he had read on our website. And on top of that, the podcasts that my sister had been producing and putting out there into iTunes and Stitcher. And he pretty much had it all down. You're talking about an average dude who had no idea about what he needed to do to get a divorce. And he came in and he became from a cold lead to a warm lead to a hot lead to signing on as a client.
Right. Right. Well, I think I lost you there, Shannon. I don't know if you're still there or not, but a couple of things that I wanted to talk about, and you may want to be able to come back in if you can. But a lot of people on Pinterest, I'm seeing them come in, and they have like.
That's all you need to do.
I'm sorry, I've lost you, Shannon. You may want to
Oh
pop
no.
back in. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, I just don't see your picture anymore, so we'll keep going. But a couple
Okay.
of things you can do for Pinterest is I know a lot of people do coupons. I know a lot of people do ebooks. They do checklists. They do guides and the thing that you and I have talked about a lot is these video series. Creating these videos or doing these hangouts where you bring in an expert. Well, you can chop those up and post them on your site and have an opt-in to see that video, which I think is a great way to repurpose some content, and webinars, which we've all seen. So I think it's a great way to, get people from Pinterest onto your site to sign up for an email list. Another question I have for you. Pinterest is all about images, and I've seen a lot of offers on Pinterest, but I probably wouldn't repin, let alone click through to their website. So, can you speak a little bit about the importance of the images or creating the visuals for that offer?
Yeah, I think the visuals for the offer should be eye-catching, but for me, I kind of like to keep things very minimalist, and not putting a whole lot of like garbage in the image where it's like a button here, and then of course you got like a big swooshy thing that goes there, and then it's hard to read the text. I mean, I think whenever you're coming in through Pinterest, that you're looking for images that may be inspiring. I like to do a lot of photography, especially sunset photography, not just with my a good camera, but with my cell phone. And a lot of those cell phone images that I use, I did in the past. I was pinning to Pinterest at the time, and I was getting repins on those. And then since then, of course, that has ended. But I would think that if you're creating content inside of your website, and then you want to get eyes on it through Pinterest, have a clear, maybe a clear title, something that is going to drive someone to go, oh, I really, really think that this is a piece of content that I want to read. A person who does that really great, and I know that you're going to have her coming up on your show, is Rebecca Radice, and
Right.
she's very stylish. Hers is real stylish, and it fits her personality. And it's always something like, here are the top 5 ways you can build an email list, or here are the top 5 ways you can, top 5 tools that can increase your bottom line. And
Right.
it's usually like a picture of like a real pretty lady right next to it, and then of course it's just white lettering. But the titles are usually, it's the copy title that is usually attention grabbing. So you want the copy title to be attention grabbing so that it can lead someone from Pinterest back onto your blog, because they're really, really interested in reading what you have to say, because maybe they are in the business of building a business, and maybe something like a post from Rebecca, or maybe a post from the Manly Pinterest Tips, that is going to drive traffic back to the website. So think about the ad copy, or not the ad copy, think about the title copy that you're writing, and how can you make it catching, and catchy for someone to go, oh wow, I do need that. Try to target your audience and figure out what their pain point is. If they're having trouble with the tools that can be used for Pinterest, maybe you write a blog post on that, and then say, here are the top 5 tools to use on Pinterest to gather more traffic. So that's just kind of a way you got to focus on your copy for your title.
Right. And I think a lot of people get excited that they finally got that product or the set of tools or something ready, and they rush real quick and they don't do a good job on the image, because there's a lot of like Photoshop actions and stuff, and even websites where you can take an image and make it look like a book or a CD or whatever, and a lot of those look really bad. So I would spend some time, even if you need to hire a designer for that. I know Canva now has Kindle ebook templates that look really good that you could build a product right off of that. So I would suggest people look at that. So, but I think it's really important that they get that, and another thing that people do is they forget when they put that pin on place, they forget to actually link it back to the website, and that's one of the things people do. Make sure you go back in and edit that pin, and make sure you're pointing it back to the website, or else you're just putting up a pretty picture that doesn't do you any good.
Right. You
So,
know, and I mean, to speak to Canva, I mean, these days you could build pretty much any type of graphic you want in Canva for really, really, really cheap. I mean, I think I spent $30 on Canva, and you know, I mean, I spent $30 to have credit on Canva, and I
right,
still have credit waiting to be used on Canva, and I use Canva almost every day now. So
right,
it's, you know, I mean, it can go a little bit, can go a really long way inside of Canva without having to be a Photoshop pro.
right. Yeah, I mean it's my go-to tool as well. So, you guys, I want to take this time. If you have any questions of Shannon, go ahead and ask them in the comments. We've got some right now I wanted to get to. The Cheryl says, "I'm just getting to know Shannon Hernandez, but I'm really impressed by not only his knowledge, but how genuine he is."
Thank you, Cheryl.
That was sweet. She must not know you. No, just kidding. um,
She must not know me.
but and Alyssa says, Pinterest is her biggest driver of new contacts to her email list. Same thing for
Mhm.
one of our customers too, by far. So yes, Pinterest can really drive traffic to your email list, and so I think that's why I wanted to bring Shannon on, because he does it so well, and we're going to get later and talking to him about how he writes his actual copy. So let's continue with the questions. One of the things I wanted to ask you was, how long can I run an offer or promotion? Some people I visited, and they have the same for months and months and months and months. I've seen that same download my free ebook. Is there a length of time that's recommended for a giveaway or for a product? I've actually even seen people, some of the big people like Amy Porterfield and some other big content marketers, they have it for a limited time. Does that actually drive more signups during that period?
You know, I think if you put the scarcity on maybe a particular product, I have an idea for a product right now that I want to go ahead and push out as something that's going to be free and scarce for anyone who wants to get on that list. It's going to be a matter of like who wants to get on the list and who wants to get this free, e-course for a limited time before it starts going into, paid. So I would also check to see, depending on your launch too and how you want to launch it, but I would check to see, depending on your opt-ins and the type of opt-in plugin that you're using. I may be getting a little more geeky and nerdy, but
Right.
if you're running your own website, you should know plugins. The plugin that I use is Opt-in Monster, and Opt-in Monster will tell you, the percentage, that what's the highest rate of conversion that you're getting for those opt-ins. And so if you're not getting a high conversion rate on those opt-ins, then maybe you need to think about, oh, maybe I need to give 3 chapters away for free, and I can still give the same book away, instead of
Right.
just giving, saying, oh, I'm only giving a chapter away. Maybe give away 3 chapters, because you got to remember, people love the free stuff. I mean, don't get me wrong, man. I walk into the taco shop, and if they offer me, a free bowl or basket of nachos, I'm like, yeah, man, I'll totally take that. So you got to think about it in terms of like, man, what can I get for free? So if you can give them something for free, maybe instead of 1 chapter, give them 3 chapters, or maybe you give them 3 modules of your 8-module course, because within those first 3 modules, maybe you give out some super quality, great information, and then people go, you know what, man, I'm in. I am totally in. I will buy this course now. Like, I'm so down to. I can trust this person enough to know that here are the results. As long as he is teaching something where there is an ROI, then of course, there's a lot of trust that is built there. So I would say, look at your conversion rate and look to see what the conversion is. And when I say look to the conversion, people out there might be confused. The conversion rate is usually told within those plugins. It's really just displayed within those plugins, and it says, what the conversion rate is, and it'll say like 0.08 or something like that. If you can get a conversion of like 0.06, or even maybe 1 point whatever, you're probably
Right.
doing pretty well. But it also depends on how many times it's been shown. So you start having to do math, and I'm not a real big math guy. Obviously, I was an English dude, so I can
Right.
barely balance my checkbook. I don't, because who's balancing checkbooks these days?
That's right. That's right. So, and just want to make it clear for people who are maybe new to this, a conversion rate is when how many people click and sign up for your offer, right? Is that what you mean by conversion?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So who can go from point A and then enter the email address and then get over to the other side and point B? That's the conversion.
Gotcha. Now we may be a little more geeky, but I wanted to ask you this question.
That's cool.
I've seen some pins that go, and straight, not just go to a blog article where there's a opt-in form on the sidebar or something like that, but actually a pin that goes straight to a landing page or what some people call a squeeze page. What am I looking for when I create a landing page? The benefits of a landing page is that it's usually one call to action. It's usually do this thing when you land on this page, and so they're pretty effective. Is from what everybody and all the research is. So when I'm creating a landing page for myself for my own product, what do I need to look for or look at?
So I think what I mentioned this earlier, what you got to do, and depending on the type of landing page that you're going to be building, there's a couple different places where you can get landing pages. But when you're building your landing page, try to really speak to your customer and look at your customer's pain points. That is just one of the big things that you have to look at. What are they struggling with, and what can you put on that page that says, hey, I really can not necessarily sympathize with you, but I can understand where you're coming from. You're just starting a business for the very first time, and people are talking about this email list. Well, maybe I give you something that says, hey, let me describe to you, here are the 4 steps that you can take right now to start building your email list today. Maybe you're struggling with this, and you don't know how to convert those people, those visitors, into actual email leads. So really speak to the pain points of what they're struggling with. If it's divorce, or let's put it this way, maybe it's a real estate agent, and the real estate agent has a landing page, and you're looking for a particular house. Depending on what that real estate agent, where he is focusing, who he is focusing on, maybe he's focusing on higher end homes, and he says, if you're looking for a higher end home and you're tired of looking for these little, wood shacks, let me show you what the benefits are behind buying a higher end home, and where you can save costs. People love to save money. They love, as long as you're alleviating some type of pain on that lead page or on that landing page, then you might be getting that conversion. But you have to make it really good, because if you're not making it good, then they're not going to come over and sign up. The times that I have done it, people have come in and especially whenever I have done a launch offer, they come in, they read it. I do like my video speech, and then the video speech is like a sales letter, and I tell them, hey, if you're struggling with this, let me show you the 4 steps that you can take right now where you can start increasing the visibility of your Google Plus posts. Just
Right.
things like that. So if you're giving them strong calls to action and strong, I guess you could say strong data behind it too, you
Right.
might be getting an opt-in. Or
Gotcha.
even a sale too.
Right. Well, I know some people. Most of the good landing page software creation tools, a lot of them allow what's called split A/B testing, which is really cool, and this is really geeky. But you can actually have 2 versions of the landing page where you drive traffic to, and you can find out which one's doing better and use that. You can tweak the copy, you can tweak the image, change the opt-in button to red instead of blue, and see how that converts as well. So that's something that all those really, you've heard us talk about these marketers who are doing it well. They're doing that. They're doing those split. They're testing and changing stuff all the time. So I wanted the viewers to be aware of that as well.
Yeah, I think that's something that I always forget to mention is there's always an A/B split test. I create A/B split tests for a lot. I have right now an A/B split test that's going on for 2 different types of 2 different types of opt-ins. And one will be on child support, and another one is on spousal maintenance. And then I'm going to switch that up. I'm going to say, okay, well, which ad is going to do better? Okay, so maybe the child support one does better. Now, what can I do to get more opt-ins? I can create the same child support ad, but maybe I just change colors, because people love colors, or they love different types of copy, and what will get me more opt-ins? So it's little nuances like that people just don't pay attention to.
Right, and they're very important. Hey, we have one question I wanted to run by you real quick
Okay.
from Cam, and he says, any suggestions where to get landing pages? And you mentioned that before, and you and I both use WordPress as our platform, and there are plugins for that. We mentioned Lead Pages, which is really, really good. A lot of the big people use it, but it's also expensive.
Yes.
Unbounce is another one. Do you have any other ones that you know of right off the top of your head?
What's funny is I came across a blog post yesterday on the different types of opt-ins and landing pages. I'll have to find it for him, and if I can find it, I'll post it in the comments section.
Okay, but there's a lot of WordPress plugins. If you do some searches or asking on Google Plus, there'll be some people who will help you in that area. Another question. Okay, I've started to generate signups. Okay, I'm getting leads in. Um, Now, what do I need to do with this list that I've created to cultivate it? What are the next steps?
Okay, well, I'll just kind of run you through what I do in order to cultivate and keep that list, engaged with what I'm doing. Um, every Sunday I send out an email to people, and sometimes that email goes to a blog, and sometimes it doesn't. And I kind of like to thrive on the idea that, like, if you want to really get some great content, you have to subscribe to my email list. Like, there's just no question about it.
Right.
Like, because I'm not going to always post it on my blog, and I'm not always going to post it there for people to reshare. And this has happened to me on a couple of occasions where I have written something that may have been inspirational, or maybe it had some really good content, and then I'll get a response back from someone saying, "How do I share this out to someone else?" And I always say, "Well, maybe I'll write it out in a blog." And I've seen other email marketers do this too. They'll say, this is not a blog post. This is only for your eyes. So I kind of try to keep it as like, hey, you're in my little secret club, and you are allowed to like jump into my mind and see what I have been thinking about and the struggles that maybe I've been feeling in the past, or maybe I can relate to what you're going through. And I think that's something that really resonates with a lot of people, because our feelings and our struggles, or maybe and our triumphs, they are only temporary. You have to always keep moving forward. So where you might be finding a struggle, there may be an email that's waiting for you that says, hey, look, if you're finding difficulty on Google Plus, or, hey, if you got some deal that, you're really wanting to jump into Pinterest, let me introduce you to my buddy Jeff. And Jeff might be able to give you somewhere. It's a great way to refer traffic back to like some of my friends and say, hey, look, you might want to get onto this list because he can teach you all about the Pinterest. Or I can say, hey, here are some statistics on, the bounce rate from, Google Plus Hangouts to your own web page. Just depends, as long as I'm giving them some value where it's really, really good, then I like every Sunday I always get like, some bleed over from people that like I always start getting, opt-ins from people, and I just keep thinking to myself, these happen on Sundays, so clearly someone is forwarding those emails off, and then they're getting onto my list, and that's how that's working. So kind of cultivate it. I'm a big fan. I use MailChimp. I have this goal personally. There's people who love MailChimp, and there's people who hate MailChimp.
Right.
I have a personal goal to make MailChimp for the person who is starting out in the very beginning. They can't afford, maybe they could afford Aweber, but maybe they're just like, that's just a little too much. Maybe we work with MailChimp. And I have this big thing in MailChimp where I use the merge tags. And what a merge tag does is that if you're collecting a first name in your list, you are now allowed to personalize those emails with that person's first name. And you could have a list of 1,000 people, but if you use that merge tag, it will personalize it for each person that you send those emails to. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah.
So there's just little tips and tricks that I use inside of MailChimp, especially with my automated emails. I mean, you talk about like, how do I cultivate that list? I have an automation email sequence that's happening right now on the law list, and it gives people great information, and it's not something that is spammy to people. It says, hey, you're obviously interested in what my content is about. Let me give you some more information that maybe will move them from a cold to a warm to a hot lead.
Right, and that kind of leads right into one of the things we learned about when we were at that conference in Tim Page's conference is that a lot of people, and what I'm going to try to working on building out right now is using those automated emails, but I'm going to use video to kind of lead them down a path to where I want to go. So you don't just have to use static text or whatever. Video is a really effective way, or you can mix them up. And so my goal is to have, okay, I'm pinning this product. They sign up for my newsletter to get that free product. Then they begin an automated process where they start down a path where, okay, here's a video on how to do, how to write better descriptions in Pinterest or whatever. And then in a couple of days they get another email to, do this. And it might be a video or it might be a text. And then finally it leads to, hey, do you want to buy something of mine or my clients or something like that? So there's an automated thing that, yes, it takes some time to fill out and get started, but once you have it and you can start channeling people down that, it's just a huge, huge tool that a lot of marketers are using for great success. And that leads to another question I wanted to ask you. What is the frequency? You do yours on Sunday. When is too much when is it too much to drop emails, and when, what's the best frequency to send out email marketing?
The ones that I subscribe to, they're doing it once a week. Some do it once every 2 weeks. Um, I have a video marketer. Her name is Maria Andros, and Maria, she does her marketing, but I can't quite figure out when she's sending out her posts and when she's sending out her
Right.
emails because it's so scattered. And so I don't know exactly where it's when it's going to be coming out. Is it Tuesday? Is it this and that? Now I'm not saying that you have to have an exact day. I
Right.
just happen to do it on Sundays because I feel like there's less emails that are opened on or less emails that are received on Sunday than getting one on Monday where it's just like buried. Or it's just another piece of the email and you're at work and like, oh my god, I got another email that I got to open.
Right.
So but it all depends, and I typically get a lot of opens on Sunday, and then on Monday I get a lot of opens too because people are going back to work and checking their emails. So I would say that if you're doing it, do it at least once a week. And there's been studies that have shown that you don't have to do it on a particular day as long as you're doing it once a week and staying top of mind. And that really kind of rings true because every time that I have I've skipped my weeks. Sometimes maybe it was because I was in some other state and I had no internet service and I didn't plan ahead. But and I'll get emails from people saying, "Hey, where did your email go? Where was your email? Are you
Right.
sending
Right.
one out?" And I'll send one out like on Monday, and they're excited to get that email. So just try to stay consistent with maybe maybe two emails a week if you can. Depending on how you want to run that model or that business model, and depending on the type of opt-ins that you have. I know that what I have planned for the law firm website is multiple types of opt-ins and different styles and different automated emails that will come out, but they are of quality. Instead of just being something that's spammy, it's something that comes out every particular day of the week. Let's say, or maybe it's once a week, or maybe it's once
Right.
a month, and they know they signed up for that, and so they know they're going to be getting that. But the guarantee is that you're always going to be getting a weekly email. That is something that I have had to drive home with my sister, who she now writes her own weekly emails to law firm
Right.
clients and says, hey, here's what's going on. Maybe they were their current law firm clients, or maybe their former law firm clients. What's great about that is that if she is staying on top of mind with former law firm clients, they usually send referrals back over to the website, and we get new referrals there. And maybe we don't get the email address. Maybe we actually get the client that comes in through the door. So just multiple ways of trying to get people on the list, and then just providing value without looking too spammy.
Right. And I know what people are thinking right now. It's like, oh crud, I've got one more piece of content that I have to write. Well, for me, for like Pinterest, what you can do is you can use, okay, I have a pin of the day, or I found this great new board that I wanted to share with you guys. Here's my new board I created on email marketing in Pinterest, and I have those that I can share out on my newsletter for my subscribers. So think creatively about how you can share content. You don't always have to write, a huge, long treatise about something. You can share other people's stuff in your email or highlight something, or at Pinterest, you share a pin. And so there's some really creative ways you can do that. Now I want to speak. We're kind of running short on time, but I wanted to ask this question of you because this is
Okay.
how I think we really got connected. But you've got a great way of writing your emails. I mean, they're very personable, and you have a specific voice or tone to your email newsletter. So how can a person who is just starting, writing newsletters, how can they find their own voice and their own style? What's the best way to do that?
Right. I've always been kind of, I guess, a fun guy, fun loving guy. I'm a big believer in that if you're jumping into the business space, no one likes to hear a stuffy business person like, well, you got to do this and you got to, I'm not like that. I tend to put a lot of ice breaking, commentary within my everyday conversations, just and I'll get to what you're talking about, but this is an example. We were in our meeting yesterday, our weekly meeting at the law firm, and we were talking about different marketing strategies that had to go into what we were going to be doing in the upcoming weeks. And
Right.
everyone was also serious. And so then they came to me and they asked me the question. Of course, I was very serious, and then and I was down to business. But then afterwards, I threw in a couple like little like jokes, and I said, my name is Shannon Hernandez, and I'm digital marketing director for Hernandez Family Law Firm, and blah 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 blah. And I'm a fan of Battlestar Galactica. And like it just totally changed the tone, and everyone started laughing. Now I'm not a fan of Battlestar Galactica, you know, I'm more of a Star Wars dude, but it was just an example, and it kind of made people laugh. So
Gotcha.
then I've learned that over time and over the years, just being in radio, that you know, you've got to get people, you've got to get like the giggle or the laugh out of people, and finding my own voice in email is almost as though I am speaking to, you know, just my everyday buddy, you know, saying, hey, you know, how was your week? You know, and making it personal in your email. Say, hey, you know, hey Jeff, how was your week? Did you get a lot done this week? You know, and just putting those little responses in there, because sometimes people will come back to you and they'll respond back. They're like, yeah, my week was really great, you know, or yeah, I had a real struggle. Can you tell me a little more about this and that? And usually that prompts me to send them to a blog or something like that.
Right.
So
Right.
I try to make it personal. I try to make it conversational, and I try to weave a story in. People love to see the application of what you're talking about through story.
Right.
So if you can pull some type of story, and I always allude to one story that happened throughout the week, or I try to, you know, I try to at least, and then I say, okay, well, this is how you can apply it to Google Plus, or this is how you can apply it to your email marketing. Because it kind of paints a picture in the mind. Instead of being a set of directions, let me give you some application of how it worked.
Good. That's good advice. Yeah, I think people listen more when they laugh. I think having, you know, that's a key thing in storytelling. Storytelling in your email newsletters, even if you're sharing somebody else's, you're highlighting somebody else's content, you can still tell a story using that. So those are great points. Last question for you. Well, second to last question. What's the what's the biggest mistake you made when you started doing email marketing?
Oh man, which one can I pick? I mean, I made a ton of mistakes in email
Right.
marketing. I think for me, I think the biggest mistake was probably not, for me, not segmenting out my lists and not learning where they came from and not learning what they're actually interested in doing. Because now I am having to go back, you know, and I'm having, you know, now that practice is in place. Now I'm going in and segmenting and grouping. That's something that's probably a little more advanced than the beginner who is, you know, getting into email marketing for the first time. You'll learn it and you'll get used to it. But I think also one of the biggest mistakes, and still rings true for a lot of people, and I just mentioned this to someone yesterday, and I advised them, make sure you get a first name. For me personally, a first name is what works, because a first name allows it to be personal. Now,
Right.
someone might come onto your email list and they might put in a fake name, and it says like, you know, I've gotten some really ridiculous names. Or like one was like "get the f out" or something like
Right.
that. They
Right.
just
Right.
wanted the free whatever.
Right.
But you know, and I typically go in and I just delete those because clearly they were just out for the freebie.
Right.
But having the first name on your opt-in forms, having the first name on your landing page, give them a reason to put a first name, because you know you can't live without that. That would be, that just makes it more personal to me.
Right. Um, One more question from our audience, and then we'll wrap it up. The question is, Mr. Shannon Hernandez, thoughts about cross-pollinating, you know, Pinterest followers with other social media platforms that follow me on. So, what are your thoughts about just kind of general cross-pollinating between platforms?
You know, I think if you're trying to cross pollinate over onto other social media platforms, that's a tough question, because I believe in being on the one that works for the best for you.
Right.
Um, you know, Pinterest may give you a lot of quality traffic, and maybe you're trying to do the same thing on Facebook, but maybe it's not quite working out for you. If you cross pollinate and say you're auto posting over to Facebook, well, that's a big no no. Everyone knows that. Big no no. If you're trying to do it on Twitter and you're cross pollinating over to Twitter, well, do you have a presence on Twitter? And are you actually going over there, and are you, when you post something out, are you actually responding back when someone says, hey, that's a great post? You know, if you're kind of a spaz like I am, you know, you have notifications coming in on your phone all the time.
Right.
So I would say just be careful if you're cross-pollinating, say, from Twitter to Pinterest, or from Pinterest to Facebook, or Pinterest or Google Plus to Pinterest. Just be careful about that, because if you do, you got to. That's like saying, hey, I'm equally as equipped to be on that social network as I am to be on Pinterest. be careful with how thin you're spreading yourself, because kind of like what we talk about, Jeff, it's about your bandwidth for the day, or bandwidth for the week, or bandwidth for the month. How much personal bandwidth do you have to be on each one of those social networks, and is it going to tear you away from the overall goal of building your email list? So that's something to just kind of think about.
Awesome. Well, Shannon, thanks so much for being here today. I appreciate your time. So where can we go? And people already asked where they can, in the comments, where they can, your Pinterest boards and a bunch of other stuff. But where can we go to find out more stuff about you, where we can sign up for your awesome email list? Where can we do that?
Certainly. Well, you can definitely follow me on Pinterest. I am on Pinterest, but you can go to shannonjhernandez.com. You can follow me there, and of course, I'm slowly. I guess you could say this is like kind of the slow announcement, or the soft announcement, building out the website, cloudbustingforlawyers.com, and that's where I really talk about how to do a lot of the same stuff that you'd be building for your own website, but tailoring it really for the attorney niche. And so for the attorneys, and teaching you like how do you get the leads, and just the little nuances where you have to follow the rules so you're not breaking the bar regulations.
Right.
That's a collaboration between my sister and myself that we've had to research. So you can follow me on those multiple platforms.
Well, thank you, sir. And I thank you to my awesome audience that was asking some great questions. I appreciate it that you guys stopped by today and watched this live. As always, I'd love for you guys to go visit manlypinteresttips.com. I'm thinking wrong. manlypinteresttip.com. Click on the sidebar and subscribe to our email community, so you'll never miss a great, awesome guest like Shannon, and you'll know when we're interviewing our next guest. So, because we always, at manlypinteresttipscom, we're always adding testosterone one pin at a time. See you next time, everybody. Thanks for watching.
Thanks, Jeff.